An end school zone sign indicates a. that the speed limit is 20 miles per hour. B. the beginning of a reduced speed zone. C. the increased possibility of encountering pedestrians. D. the end of a reduced speed zone. D. the end of a reduced speed zone. Do not exceed the school zone speed limit during indicated times. The end of a reduced speed school zone will be indicated by an end school zone regulatory sign. If a green arrow turns into a solid green light, you a. may still turn, but you must yield to oncoming traffic. B. may no longer turn and must proceed straight. C. still have the right of way to turn. D. no longer have to turn in the direction that the arrow indicated. A. may still turn, but you must yield to oncoming traffic. If a green arrow turns into a solid green light, you may still turn in the direction that the arrow was pointing, but you must first yield to pedestrians and oncoming traffic. When parking near a crosswalk, drivers may park no closer than fill in the blank to the crosswalk. A. 20 feet. B. 10 feet. C. 5 feet. D. 1 foot. A. 20 feet. In Louisiana, it is against the law to park within 20 feet of a crosswalk. When turning left, drivers must yield the right of way to A. other drivers who are already in the intersection. B. oncoming traffic. C. pedestrians who are already in the intersection. D. all of the above. D. all of the above. When turning left, drivers must yield the right of way to oncoming traffic. Drivers must also always yield the right of way to pedestrians, bicyclists, and other drivers who are already in the intersection.
Want to ace your DMV test? Click on the link below and get your guaranteed cheat sheet.
When may you drive above the speed limit? A. never. B. when there is no police officer present. C. when traffic around you is driving above the speed limit. D. when you are in a hurry. A. never. Respect the legal speed limits and do not speed. Driving at controlled speeds will provide you with enough time to change lanes, slow down, or stop your vehicle should an unexpected hazard occur. If you find that you're in a turn lane but want to drive straight ahead, you should A. reverse your vehicle and merge back into traffic. B. put on your turn signal and wait to merge back into through traffic. C. make the turn anyway. D. quickly swerve into the next lane. C. make the turn anyway. If you are in a lane that requires you to turn, other drivers will not expect you to suddenly change lanes or stop. You should always turn if you are in a turn lane. Circle around the block to return to the initial road, if you need to do so. You may cross solid yellow lines. A. to pass traffic moving in the same direction. B. during daylight hours only. C. at any time. D. when making turns. D. when making turns. As a general rule, broken traffic lines may be crossed but solid lines may not. Solid yellow lines may be crossed only when the driver is making a turn. This sign means A. stop. B. side road. C. two-way left turn. D. Farm machinery. A. Stop. 8-sided traffic signs warn drivers that they must stop and yield the appropriate right-of-way at an intersection. Drivers may proceed when it is safe to do so. This sign means A. Crossroad ahead. B. Flagger ahead. C. Lane ends. D. Turn right or go straight. A. Crossroad ahead. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign alerts drivers to an upcoming intersection. If your car breaks down on a highway, you should A. Sit in your car and wait for help. B. Use your four-way flashers to warn other drivers. C. Sound your horn at passing motorists. D. Flash your headlights at oncoming traffic. B. Use your four-way flashers to warn other drivers. If your vehicle breaks down on the highway, you should signal before carefully exiting the roadway and turning on your hazard flashers. Get as far off the road as possible and park in a location where other drivers can easily see you. Lift your hood to let other drivers know your vehicle is disabled. If traffic signals at an intersection are not functioning due to a power outage, A. Park your vehicle as far off the road as possible and wait for power to be restored. B. Use hand signals to indicate your intentions to other drivers. C. Turn on your hazard lights and proceed through the intersection without stopping. D. Treat the intersection as a four-way stop. This sign means A. Slippery when wet. B. Watch for drunk drivers. C. Dangerous curve ahead. D. Bump in the road ahead. A. Slippery when wet. Warning signs are usually diamond-shaped with black markings on a yellow background. They alert drivers to upcoming hazards. This sign warns drivers to be extra careful when the pavement is wet because the road may become slippery, making vehicles more difficult to control. How can you lower the risk of hydroplaning? A. Do not speed when the roads are wet. B. Use tires with proper air pressure. C. Replace tires with bad tread. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Hydroplaning happens when a vehicle glides on top of a thin layer of water between its tires and the road. Tires with low air pressure or bad tread can increase the risk of hydroplaning. Speeding also increases the risk. When a curb is painted, fill in the blank. It indicates a loading zone, or another parking restriction. A. Blue. B. Yellow. C. White. D. Red. B. Yellow. Painted curbs indicate parking restrictions. When a curb is painted yellow, it indicates the presence of a loading zone, or another parking restriction. This road sign means A. Sharp turn to the right. B. Double curve. C. Winding road. D. Pavement ends. C. Winding road. This sign indicates that the road ahead winds with a series of turns or curves. A diamond-shaped sign. A. Warns of existing or possible hazards. B. Alerts drivers to school zones. C. Alerts drivers to public recreation areas. D. Alerts drivers to upcoming food and gas locations. A. Warns of existing or possible hazards. Diamond-shaped signs warn drivers of existing or potential driving hazards. You will usually see these signs in yellow or orange. What is a no zone? A designated no passing zone. B. A one-way traffic area. C. The blind spot of a large vehicle. D. An area designated for motor vehicles. C. The blind spot of a large vehicle. No zones are the large blind spots around trucks and other large vehicles. Drivers of smaller vehicles should avoid lingering in no zones. A bicyclist who doesn't obey traffic laws? A. Is in the right because bicyclists don't have to obey traffic laws. B. Can be ticketed. C. Will always receive a warning from law enforcement. D. Will have their bicycle impounded. B. Can be ticketed. All bicyclists have the same rights, duties, and responsibilities as drivers of motor vehicles. Motorists and bicyclists who do not obey traffic laws can be ticketed. What does alcohol do to your driving skills and judgment? A. It helps driving skills but harms your judgment. B. It harms both driving skills and judgment. C. It has no effect on either driving skills or judgment. D. It has no effect on judgment but it harms driving skills. B. It harms both driving skills and judgment. Alcohol negatively affects many skills needed for safe driving, including your reaction time and ability to see clearly. It can also harm your judgment of speed and distance, lower your inhibitions, and make you more prone to taking chances. Under normal weather and traffic conditions, maintain a minimum following distance of A. 1 second. B. 2 seconds. C. 3 seconds. D. 4 seconds. C. 3 seconds. The more distance between your vehicle and others, the more time you'll have to react if another driver makes a mistake. Maintain a minimum following distance of 3 seconds when driving under normal weather and traffic conditions. Increase your following distance when anything makes driving conditions less than perfect. Crossbuck signs indicate A. Railroad crossings. B. School zones. C. No passing zones. D. Hospitals. A. Railroad crossings. Crossbuck signs tell drivers to yield to trains at a railroad crossing. Drivers should not try to outdrive a train. What do speed limit signs indicate? A. Potential driving speeds for the area. B. The maximum or minimum speed that is legally allowed to be driven. C. The speed drivers should drive in heavy traffic. D. The speed drivers should drive under poor conditions. B. The maximum or minimum speed that is legally allowed to be driven. Speed limit signs indicate the maximum or minimum safe speed that is allowed to be driven on a roadway. The maximum limits are for ideal conditions and you must reduce your speed when conditions require it. Before entering a roundabout, you must slow down and yield to A. Vehicles in the roundabout. B. Bicyclists in the roundabout. C. Pedestrians in the roundabout. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. When entering a roundabout, you must yield to pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles that are already in the roundabout. the most effective thing you can do to reduce your risk of being injured or killed in a traffic crash is to A. Wear your seat belt. B. Limit your driving to weekdays. C. Stay in the right lane on multi-lane highways. D. Limit your driving to hours between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. A. Wear your seat belt. Wearing your seat belt is the single most effective thing you can do to reduce your risk of death or injury while driving. At dusk or on overcast days, you should A. Drive using your four-way flashers. B. Drive using your parking lights. C. Not turn on any vehicle lights. D. Turn on your headlights. D. Turn on your headlights. At dusk or on overcast days, you must turn on your headlights. Dim your lights to their low beam setting when within 1,000 feet of an approaching vehicle and when within 500 feet of a vehicle that you are following. When driving in poor weather, always use your low beams. This is a fill in the blank sign. A. Stop. B. Wrong way. C. Yield. D. Do not enter. C. Yield. This triangular sign is a yield sign. When you see this sign, you must slow down to check for traffic and yield the right of way to pedestrians and approaching cross traffic. Stop only if it is necessary to do so. If you are driving when weather, road, and traffic conditions are not ideal, keep a minimum following distance of A. 1 second. B. 2 seconds. C. 3 seconds. D. 4 seconds. D. 4 seconds. There are situations when you need more space in front of your vehicle than usual. Increase your following distance to at least 4 seconds when driving conditions are not ideal. When driving in rain, you must A. Use low beam headlights. B. Use high beam headlights. C. Use parking lights. D. Use no lights. A. Use low beam headlights. In rainy conditions, you should use your low beam headlights. In a city, you should look at least fill in the blank blocks ahead of your vehicle. A. 1. B. 2. C. 3. D. 4. B. 2. Looking well down your path of travel will help you identify potential hazards before meeting them. In the city, you should look at least 2 blocks ahead of your vehicle. Drivers should apply the gas pedal A. By lightly tapping. B. As abruptly as possible. C. Gradually and smoothly. D. In whichever way they feel is best for them. C. Gradually and smoothly. Accelerate gradually and smoothly with the top of your foot on the gas pedal and the heel of your foot on the floor. Depressing the gas pedal too quickly can cause the wheels to overspin or cause your vehicle to slide, especially if the pavement is wet. Fill in the blank of crashes occur within 25 miles of home. A. 75%. B. 50%. C. 25%. D. 15%. A. 75%. 75% of traffic crashes occur within 25 miles of the driver's home. It is safest to fasten your seat belt before leaving your driveway, even if you are only traveling a short distance. While driving on a two-lane road without bicycle lanes, you encounter a bicyclist traveling in the same direction. What is the safest way to pass the bicyclist? A. Slow down and wait until there is no traffic approaching, then pass the bicyclist while leaving him or her sufficient space. B. Continue driving straight. It is the bicyclist's responsibility to get out of your way. C. Do not pass the bicyclist until you come to a traffic signal or stop sign. D. Honk at the bicyclist to let him or her know you are about to pass. A. Slow down and wait until there is no traffic approaching, then pass the bicyclist while leaving him or her sufficient space. You should pass a bicyclist the same way you would pass any other vehicle, but not so fast or close to them that you throw debris in their face or blow them around with the draft of air from your vehicle. Allow at least 3 feet of space between your side mirror and the bicyclist, or at least 5 feet on higher speed roads or when there is a group of bicyclists. Honking unnecessarily may startle riders and make them more likely to crash. When should drivers use one-hand steering? A. When turning the wheel during normal driving activity. B. When avoiding a hazard at a high speed. C. When turning the wheel at low speeds. D. When backing, activating signals, turning on the radio, or activating windshield wipers. D. When backing, activating signals, turning on the radio, or activating windshield wipers. Use one-hand steering only when backing or when operating vehicle controls, wipers, flashers, lights, etc. that require a temporary reach from the steering wheel. If you become stranded in a snowstorm, the best thing to do is to A. Get out of the car and go for help. B. Lay down in your car and go to sleep. C. Walk into the road and get the attention of other drivers. D. Stay in the car, as you are most likely to be found when you stay in your vehicle. D. Stay in the car, as you are most likely to be found when you stay in your vehicle. If you become stranded in a snowstorm, the best thing to do is stay in your car and wait for help. You are most likely to be found if you don't leave your vehicle. Additionally, it may be unsafe to walk around outside in a snowstorm. This green arrow on a lane use control signal means A. You may use this lane. B. No traffic is allowed in this lane. C. You have the right of way. D. You must merge into this lane. A. You may use this lane. A steady downward green arrow over a traffic lane means you may use the lane indicated. A person who drives much slower than the speed limit. A. Is a very safe driver. B. Always has the right of way. C. Should not let following cars pass. D. May create a dangerous driving environment. D. May create a dangerous driving environment. Driving more slowly than the flow of traffic can be hazardous. If you are on a two-lane, two-way road and driving so slowly that traffic is backing up behind you, you are required to pull off the road and let the other vehicles pass. Only drive significantly under the speed limit when conditions require it. When traffic lights are horizontal, the green light is A. On the right. B. In the middle. C. On the left. D. On a separate traffic signal. You have the right of way when turning left on which of the following traffic signals? A. A solid green light. B. A flashing yellow light. C. A green arrow pointing left. D. A flashing red light. C. A green arrow pointing left. A green steady arrow means you may pass through the intersection in the direction that the arrow is pointing. Oncoming traffic is required to stop for turning traffic. If you are driving on the interstate and pass your exit, you should A. Quickly cut across traffic to make your turn. B. Make a U-turn to go back to the exit. C. Continue driving and use the next exit. D. Put your vehicle in reverse to go back to the exit. C. Continue driving and use the next exit. Don't make a last-minute turn into an exit. If you pass your exit, you must go to the next one. When checking your tires, you should make sure A. The tread is not worn away. B. The air pressure is not too low. C. They are not flat. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Make sure your tires are in proper condition before you enter your vehicle. A tire with low air pressure or poor tread can make driving unsafe.